We're at the point of the fantasy football season where every decision that you make matters. The players you add, the players you drop, the players you trade away could be the reason why you win your league, or it could be the reason why you lose it. And it's never been more important than right now to understand what guys you need to be stashing at the bottom of your bench, because I can tell you, there are going to be plenty of players who are still going to break out, who are still going to be difference makers for fantasy football. And you want to get them on your roster now before everyone else does, because I do think the next Bucky Irving, the next big breakout running back, no one really knows about. No one's really talking about. I think he's on this list. And if you watch one video this week, it has to be this one. All right, let's start with the first guy on this list. I think this player is going to break out. I think he's going to be a difference maker down the stretch in fantasy. And I don't think a lot of people see it coming. And it's Tyjae Spears. I get it. No one wants anything to do with the Tennessee Titans offense, but we talk about this all the time on this channel. You bet on talented players, and I think Spears is exactly that. He's one of the more explosive running backs in the NFL, and let's not forget, from weeks 15 to 17 last year, Spears averaged 21 fantasy points and 16 opportunities per game. While he saw a 60% snap share, he was the RB5 over that stretch. Only Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, and Bijan Robinson scored more fantasy points. Spears was not even utilized, barely at all last year. He didn't see more than 47% of the snaps in any game all season until week 15. Why is that notable? Because Spears saw 60% of snaps in only his second game back, coming off an injury this year. What does that tell you? Tennessee wants to use Spears because he's clearly the best running back they have on the roster. They're a terrible team this year. They have nothing to play for. Why would they not feed the young, more talented player? I mean, Tony Pollard, what has he done through the first 6 weeks of the season? Not a whole lot. 3.9 yards per carry. He hasn't gone over 100 total yards in any game this season. Tennessee has no reason to feature Pollard at all. We know they fired their head coach. They're 1-5. I would expect changes to be coming to this offense, and it would not shock me if Spears is the workhorse back on this offense, who can be a dangerous weapon for Tennessee on an offense starving for playmakers on the ground and through the air. And we know Spears is just that. He can get it done on the ground and through the air, which fits this Tennessee Titans offense. They're always going to be down trailing in games, which means they're going to be throwing the football a ton. This is really a bet on volume, talent, and the ability of former first overall pick Cam Ward to help elevate this offense. I think Tyjae can be a huge difference maker for the Titans and for fantasy football leagues. All right, moving on to our next guy. This is a player who I've been very high on all year long so far, and it hasn't turned out. It hasn't worked, but we're not giving up hope yet, and it's Bayshul Tuten, who really hasn't played football yet. He's been dealing with a shoulder injury 4 weeks now, which has limited his overall usage and production. He's barely on the football field, but what's notable is he was a full participant in Wednesday's practice, something he hasn't done for weeks. So if he can get fully healthy, he's going to have a role on this offense. His playing time is bound to increase because what has Travis Etienne done for you lately? Like, Etienne started out the year hot. He started out the year looking really good, but that's what Etienne does. He always starts the year looking good, and then he just fizzles off. From weeks 5 to 6, Etienne is the RB27 in yards, RB36 in yards per carry at 3.17, 0.0% explosive rush rate, and 0 missed tackles forced over that stretch. Like, he hasn't been good. I personally do not think Etienne is a good running back, which is also why I'm so high on Tuten, because he's already the better running back. He just needs more opportunity, just like Tyjae Spears, right? And it gets even worse. Jacksonville currently ranks first in the NFL in run block win rate, and Etienne is putting up those type of numbers. That's not good. But what does that mean? The doors are going to open up for Tuten sooner rather than later. He's a 4th-round pick that was hand-selected by Liam Cohen. And his final year in college at Virginia Tech, he had over 1,000 yards rushing, 6.3 yards per carry, 17 total touchdowns, only on 183 attempts. He put up that type of production. That is absolutely insane. While ranking 8th in elusive rating, 10th in yards after contact per attempt, 10th in breakaway percentage, and sports the 3rd highest career missed tackles forced per attempt in his class, behind only Ashton Genty and Cam Scadaboo. This is a player who has blazing 4.3 speed, best in his class, and he doesn't sacrifice size in terms of weight as he's listed at 209 pounds. This is an elusive, fast, shifty running back. We say this all the time on the channel. We just said it about Tajay Spears. Talent always wins out. And Bayshul is clearly the better running back already on this roster. Once he gets more opportunities behind this really good offensive line, he's going to break out. Like, I've been high in Bayshul, like I said, since week 1, since this summer. I still think outside of Cam Scadaboo, Tootin has the best shot at being this year's Bucky Irving, a player that kind of comes out of nowhere the second half of the year and wins people leagues. And what's even more interesting about that is that we know Liam Cohen was the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay when Bucky Irving broke out. So I'm just saying, like, the stars are aligning for Tootin, and Bayshul is rostered in less than 50% of Yahoo leagues. So if he's on the waiver wire, pick him up right now. And if he's on someone else's roster in your league, I would be trying to get him on your team. Buy low, get him on your roster, and wait for the breakout because it's coming. All right, moving on to our next guy. Luther Burden, the rookie receiver for the Chicago Bears, saw season highs in routes, targets, and receptions coming out of Chicago's bye, which is what happens for a lot of rookies. They get that post-bye bump. He's looked impressive in his limited opportunities. We saw him flash in week 6 against the Washington Commanders. 4 receptions, 51 yards on 4 targets, 9.1 fantasy points. We know Burden is still the wide receiver 4, running behind Zacchaeus on this depth chart. I don't get it. Burden should be the wide receiver 3 behind Adunze and DJ Moore. I'd expect that to change, right? I think Ben Johnson is easing Luther in. Burden obviously has an impressive talent profile. He's a 2nd round pick in this year's draft. And this is another situation where you're betting on a talented player on an ascending Bears offense attached to a brilliant play caller in Ben Johnson, who has a similar archetype as like a guy like Rashee Rice. He's a bigger player that can play out of the slot, that has strong yak ability. And I think Burden's role is only going to continue to grow in this offense. Like, it seems like a no-brainer. They're easing him in. They're doing the right thing. But there's going to be a point in the year where he sees a heavy amount of snaps and he's probably going to break out. And we know DJ Moore got banged up in last week's game. He was limited in practice already, so he's probably going to play this week. But regardless, this is a stash video. I think Burden is a player who has a ton of avenues to blow up the second half of the year. These are guys you want at the bottom of your bench. Stash them away and just wait and see what happens. I think Luther is a strong bet to be fantasy relevant the second half of the year. All right, moving on to our next guy, Harold Fannin, the rookie tight end for the Cleveland Browns. Saw an expanded role in week 6. We know David Njoku got injured, knee injury. Doesn't look great, but Fannin took full advantage and saw season highs in targets, yards, 80% snap share, 75% route participation, 20% target share, and put up nice numbers. 7 receptions, 81 yards on 10 targets, 15.1 fantasy points. This is a fun player that Cleveland wants to use all around the formation. 22 snaps from tight end, 31 from the slot, 7 from out wide, and 1 from in the backfield. He's a very unique player that the Browns want to use as a offensive weapon, considering they don't have much in the passing game right now. And it's pretty obvious that he is Dylan Gabriel's #1 target through the air. He's a beast over the middle, and he's really hard to bring down as he's forced 11 missed tackles through 6 weeks, which is the most among all tight ends and receivers. I think this is an exciting player that is going to continue to have a huge role on this offense in the passing game as long as David Njoku is out. If you need a tight end, I would be stashing him away right now just because of his talent profile, his overall usage, and he's on a Browns offense that doesn't have a lot of weapons in the passing game. So if you need a tight end, or if you just want to get a guy on your bench that you could use in a trade down the line, then I would be aggressive getting Fannin on your team right now. All right, moving on to our next guy, Woody Marks, who is rostered just over 50% in Yahoo leagues, but he's coming off a bye, and then he had a bad game before that against Baltimore. Maybe someone in your league got sick of him, didn't want to deal with him. They spent all that fab on him, and they got frustrated, and they cut him. Unlikely, but I would be checking if he's available because I think Marks is still the dude in this backfield. And let's quickly revisit that breakout performance in week 4. 17 receptions, 69 yards, got into the end zone, and then chipped in 4 receptions, 50 yards, another touchdown, 27.9 fantasy points. Nick Chubb, ladies and gentlemen, is not the answer at running back for Houston. He knows it. The coaching staff knows it. Your mom knows it. Everyone knows that the washed up Nick Chubb is not going to be the workhorse on this offense. He had a fine game against Baltimore. It was an easy victory. They were running out the clock. This coaching staff wants to make Woody Marks the guy. I know the report came out that they view him more as just a receiving back, and they talked about his injury history, blah, blah, blah. I personally don't believe any of that. If the Marks owner in your league does, I would be buying him right now extremely low before week 7 because, yeah, Woody's going to continue to thrive in the pass down situations. That's great. That's great for fantasy, but I think he's going to be a much bigger part of this offense, not only through the air, but on the ground. Like, not to mention, Marks is a rookie coming off a bye. He's going to see more usage. He's going to see a nice post-bye rookie bump. All in all, Houston, the Texans, the head coach cannot put the genie back in the bottle after that week 4 performance where he looked incredible, where he looked like the best running back that they've had all year, right? There's just no way. So if Marks is for some reason on the waiver wire, I would be getting him on your team now before he has another big game. And then everyone's like, oh yeah, that week 4 performance was not a fluke. And again, buy him low, get him on your roster now if you can help it. All right, moving on to our next guy, Jalen Coker, who I think might have the most upside of any receiver that's wildly available across the majority of leagues right now. People will fade Coker because of the offense that he's on, because he's attached to Bryce Young, who has not been great this year. He hasn't. And while that is fair, you are getting Coker off the waiver wire for free or for very cheap, right? There's not much risk here. And don't forget, from weeks 13 to 17 last year, old man Adam Thielen was the wide receiver 11 in total fantasy points. Adam Thielen, who's like 39 years old at this point, it feels like. He was averaging 19.3 fantasy points per game as the Panthers slot receiver with Bryce Young at quarterback. Now you insert Jalen into that exact role, who happens to be 6'3", 215, and 23 years old. And in 6 games last year, where Coker played at least 68% of the snaps with Bryce under center, he averaged 11.4 fantasy points per game, 56 receiving yards per game, and had an 18% target share. Not great numbers, but he was just coming on. He was a rookie. Maybe there's a chance that Young has more success throwing to Coker out of the slot where he can get the ball to him easier, right? It's an easier throw to make for Bryce. That could be. Maybe Ted McMillan is going to take all the attention away and Coker is just going to be always open underneath, right? Coker also showed us his ceiling, what he's capable of in week 15 last year against Dallas, where he racked up 4 receptions, 110 yards, and a touchdown, 21 fantasy points. I would be aggressive getting Coker on your roster now before he plays in week 7 because he's going to play. And I do think he has a ton of upside the second half of the year. Some other stashes that I like, Isaiah Davis for the Jets, just in case Breece Hall gets traded. It's looking like maybe that won't happen, but get Davis on your bench now because it still very well might happen. And if it does, Davis would be the RB1 on a run-heavy Jets team. Kyle Monangai, the rookie running back for the Chicago Bears. DeAndre Swift coming off a good game, but apparently he's hurt. He always seems like he's hurt in practice, and then he plays, but I would be stashing Monangai just in case. Christian Watson for the Packers. Brandon Ayuk, if you have an IR spot, he's eventually going to return coming off that ACL. And then the backup running backs. It's always smart to stash guys like Blake Corum, Ray Davis, Jaden Blue. And then I also like Isaiah Likely, who seems like he might be the guy at tight end for the Ravens when they come out of their bye. That's all I have for you guys today. I really appreciate each and every one of you watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.